how's quarantine going for you guys?
It's pretty rough. I just got home from America, so I have to isolate myself from literally everybody for 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's a bit. Yeah, I'm just over it now.
Yeah.
Obviously I understand it has to be done and all the rest, but it's just a bit. It's gone on too long.
Yeah, all a bit fed up now. It's not. I don't know. It's not even that bad over here anymore. There's only like 60 cases a day. You know what I mean? It's like less than 10 people dying every day, but I don't know. We'll do what we got to do.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I'm kind of like in the epicenter of everything, so it's been fun.
I'd say.
Yeah, New York's not in a good place at all.
No.
No, what's it like over there? Is it scary or is it okay or what's going on?
I personally haven't really left my house. I went in my yard for the first time in like 3 months. So
Nice. Yes.
it's been I don't know. It's kind of strange that like everything was kind of like shut down and canceled, and
Yeah.
so it's been a
I
tough.
mean, I don't think there's any such thing as being too safe when it comes to this kind of thing, anyway.
No.
So I kind of want to start with knowing how you guys have been spending quarantine. I know I personally have been listening to a lot of music to help time go by. So what have you guys been up to?
Reading and watching TV. I've been trying to write, but it's difficult. It's hard to feel inspired or like get any new ideas when you're kind of just literally stuck.
Yeah. Same. Just like doing, like trying to treat it as like a weekend where you're just chilling out or whatever, but then it goes on so long. Just trying to listen to music and I don't know. I'm just trying to talk to people and remember how to communicate properly with humans. I feel like I can't anymore.
Yeah, we've been allowed to do a bit more socializing and stuff recently. With the rules that we have now, like you're allowed to hang out in I think it's like groups of 4 if you're socially distanced properly and stuff. So it's a lot less isolated than it once was. It's easier for sure, but it's still very strange. There's a lot of sitting in my apartment watching Netflix happening. Definitely more than I'd normally be proud to admit, I would say. But
I've restarted Breaking Bad. That's just
Oh yeah,
that's a low point.
a high point, mate. What do you mean?
There's a lot going on in that show. It's not easy to watch again.
no, it's quite taxing. Yeah.
So I'm gonna ask this question. I know a lot of people don't like it, but I want to know, how did you guys meet and become a band?
We all yeah, we all kind of met in, like I was in another band a few years ago, and I met Conor Gorman through them. He would have been good mates with them, and me and Morgan were in the same year in college, and we didn't really get to know each other until maybe second year, and then yeah, it would have been like second year, and then I got to know Conor King because he was just known in our college as being the best bass player, and we really wanted him to play bass for us, so we just kind of approached him and got to know him that way.
There's hardly any bass players in the college, so that's why. But no, yeah, we all went to college together. I don't think like I was only thinking about this. I can't remember one like I met. It wasn't like I met Morgan at this party or I met Conor at this party or Mark. It was just I just would have known them from being around. If that makes sense. Like our college was more like a secondary school than a college. It's like 2 buildings, and if you had class at the same time as someone else, you probably have the same break, so you just be hanging out. Really.
Was it really?
I think that's pretty interesting. I know like my campus was like huge. Well, not huge. There weren't a lot of kids, but it's just a big campus with a lot of residential life. So
okay.
It's busy.
Yeah, ours is tiny. Like it's, I think the college we went to, there was only like 1,000 people in the college, and then some of those would be part-time students. So you'd know most of the full-time students really. Like you'd know who they are anyways, and then knew like Mark from playing in bands and Morgan playing in bands and stuff, and then me and Conor, like I was only in the year above Conor, so we had the same friends and stuff. So
And then just with kind of how small and local the scene is, there aren't really that many people that are in bands actively. Like if you find yourself going to gigs at at a certain level for a long time, you'll invariably run into, the same kind of small group of people that hang out in the same places and think a little more like you and everything. And as that happens more, it's I don't know. Like the lads were saying, there was no one big like eureka moment with the whole thing, but we were all just kind of aware of one another for a long time. And yeah, then Mark started sending me things on WhatsApp, songs he was working on and stuff, and we were talking about them together. And that had been the bits that he was working on with Conor Gorman. And then Conor King came along, and now we're all one big happy family.
Happy family.
Yeah.
I personally love this question because I feel like it's kind of like a fate moment. Like, I don't know, it's kind of things just fall into place in a way where it's like this is just kind of makes sense.
Yeah. I think because at the time I was playing for like a lot of different acts, like not in the band as such, but just like being like a session musician, and I liked that world, but it hadn't really crossed my mind to be like, join a band, be in a band. And then I heard some of the stuff that the guys been working on. And I was like, yeah, I'm all about this. Like this is great, and all the rest.
How did you guys pick your respective instruments?
My dad played guitar, so we had an old acoustic knocking about the gaff or knocking around our house. So I just kind of inevitably picked it up, and he showed me a few chords, and that was it. And then YouTube led the way from there, and it became amazing.
I learned drums first. I learned how to play drums, and I really enjoy just learning how to play things and just learning music in general. So I asked my dad if he teach me a few basic things on guitar, and then I started learning how to play a few Fall Out Boy tunes, and then I googled a chord chart thing and just kind of learned from looking at the chart, just kind of practice switching from one chord to another, and just suppose stuck with guitar. I don't know why, but I just did.
I was involved with a local like youth club, and there was this national competition at the time, which was Get Your Glee On, in the height of like Glee mania. And in my local club, there was these like three older guys who were really cool, and there was a drummer and two guitar players. So it was either I learned bass because that was the only thing left, or I would sing and dance as part of the singing and dancing brigade, and that was a no for me. So my granddad's a musician, and he had a bass at his house, and he let me borrow it, and just kind of took it up from there, really.
Bang, bang, bang.
Nice. I started playing drums when I would have been around 3. My uncle played drums too, and there was always a drum kit in that family home, and I was always pretty fascinated by it when I was a kid, in the way that you would be. They just look big and loud, and you kind of want to be allowed to mess with them. So then from my 3rd birthday, I was kind of allowed to sneak into that room and mess around whenever I was in that house. And then my dad and he played guitar, and then Dad and I kind of made a thing of it where every week we would hang out and we would just play some music, try and play some songs together. So I'm sure there was many years where he was just putting up with me making awful sounds, but yeah, he taught me to do it then weekly for years and years, and I got formal lessons from when I was like 8. But yeah, I kind of have my dad and my uncle to credit for my playing drums, to be honest. And yeah, it's been the only thing I've ever been that good at since. So I've just kept going, I suppose.
Peaked at 3.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. I'm still on a nice slow decline, but no one's noticing.
I like to think the instrument picks the person, not necessarily the person picks the instrument, because it kind of just makes sense that way. Like,
that's a much more philosophical way.
Yeah, that sounds way better than what I said.
Yeah, I wish I said that instead of going on about Glee.
Well, the reason I say that is I used to play an instrument. I used to play trumpet before college happened, and I was not my first choice, but I was handed it, and it was like, this is now yours, and it's kind of like shaped how I at least listen to music. So I like to think.
Yeah.
My next question for you guys, I always like to know a little bit more about who I'm speaking with. So what is your favorite album in your personal collection? And by personal collection, I mean you physically own it.
Physically, probably 22 Million by Bon Iver. It's probably just my general favorite album of all time. But I still kind of buy CDs and stuff like that on and off. I never really stopped doing that for some reason. I like refused to get Spotify for years because I was still buying CDs, but then eventually I just gave in and got Spotify because I was like just a bit of a loser, refusing to buy Spotify. Like, what's that about? It's so much better.
Taking a stand.
Like, honestly, what was I going to do? Yeah. I was going to shut them down.
I haven't bought a physical record in years. I'm a total new age cat. Probably the best record that I have is like Foo Fighters' Greatest Hits or something. Do you know what I mean?
That is a great record.
Bad boys.
Sure, it's the greatest of them, like, so.
Yeah. So
it won't be good.
It's the best of what they've got.
Yeah, I would have to say, yeah. I think I'm very lucky in that my dad owns a lot of vinyl, so I'm gonna take that as saying I own it just to have a better answer, because otherwise it'll be like now 67 or something. But yeah, I'm gonna say Sgt. Pepper's by the Beatles, because I just think I think that is like, there's a before and after that in terms of music and production of pop music, because they're a pop band, but what they did with sound. So that's my answer, and I'm sticking to that.
Nice. I can't pick 22 Million because Mark picked 22 Million. So despite how salty that makes me, I'm going to leave that be your option. I'm going to go with Black Sands, the Bonobo album. Because I can see it from where I'm sitting, and I know it to be very, very good. Right now, right this second, that's my number one. But I'm not a huge record guy either. But I do really love that one, and it's over there. So that's nice.
It's the only other album he owns.
Yeah. Excuse me, man.
I think at least owning a physical copy of an album has kind of increased recently due to streaming services like Spotify. Like, I know during this quarantine, I think I bought like 8 vinyls just because I didn't know what else to do, but I was like, okay, let's increase my own collection. So what is your opinion of streaming services like Spotify?
I mean, they're doing this, I suppose. I mean, they're getting the music out there, and they're getting the listens and getting people known. I just think they need to pay their artists a bit more. I mean, their whole service depends on the music and the artists, so to not be paying them that much is a bit naff.
Yeah.
It does definitely offer you a way better opportunity at getting your music to people who are further from you or who may not otherwise have heard it. Like, it's been great for getting rid of, I guess, geographical constraints on listening to music. Like, we definitely have reached people in more faraway places faster as a result of this, for sure. But then there is just a lot less revenue. Like, that, the issue of them not paying the artists enough is always prevalent. Kind of I don't know. It's unfortunate because we're also so aware of all the good parts too. We don't want to be seen to be bashing the whole streaming model too much, but it has its flaws for sure.
I think it's still in its infancy, and they will be able to work it out. Like, I have no issue with it because I think the good parts outweigh the bad parts for sure. And I think the fact that people are still buying records, it's not as if that industry is completely gone. Like, I think it's very easy to point the finger at Spotify, but if people in charge were maybe on the digitalization buzz a bit more 20 years ago, then they could have paved the way for more revenue, but no one wanted to know about it. And then Spotify came along and changed things. So fair play.
Yeah. I mean, if Spotify didn't exist, we'd all still be using LimeWire, realistically.
Disaster.
And no one gets paid for that, so.
No.
Yeah, someone once told me that Spotify was probably the creation of people illegally downloading music.
Yeah, it
for sure.
definitely was.
I think it's an interesting service. I'm not gonna lie, I use it like every day, but I think it's great for exposure, and I know it sucks pay wise. But I also personally don't like how they have that monthly listener count. Like, I feel like I shouldn't be able to see that. I feel like that should just belong to the artist, because I feel like it changes people's perception of the person.
Definitely, yeah. I never really thought about that, but it's an interesting way of
kind of like
looking at it. Yeah.
I don't know. I think that ultimately, if that affects your listening experience, something was going to get you. Like, for me, if I really back the artist I'm listening to, I don't know if I would pay that much heed to that. Maybe in a certain kind of music, or if I were to approach releasing in a certain way or something, it might have more of an effect. But I don't know. I personally, if I'm seeking a certain kind of music and that artist is the one that gives it to me, I'm going to go to that guy, you know? But yeah, for sure, I know what you mean. It could definitely be weaponized or used in the wrong way, but I think that you can't really be held accountable for that on the consumers end. Like, that's up to you guys. If somebody wants to go and look at the figures in that way, they're gonna find them, you know.
If you're,
I don't know. I guess you just have to keep making things people will like.
If you're gonna base why you're listening to them off how many monthly listeners they have, I think you're listening for the wrong reason to begin with.
I was just gonna say, like, I know here it affects touring a lot for how artists, the lineups that are created, or if a certain act is added. So I could be different here, but I've noticed that a lot in at least touring in America.
Yeah, I get that, but at the same time, it is a business and there's money involved, and if it's between you to book a gig and there's an act with 100,000 monthly listeners and an act with 2 monthly listeners, like, I'd rather be, you know, it is a business at the end of the day. So I understand it from that point of view. From a business sense, I wouldn't really have much issue with it, because I will say that Spotify are quite proactive in telling you how to engage more and how to grow yourself more. Like, they offer like advice to artists how to do that. So I think that that has been the case from the dawn of time, where people want, you know, who's number one in the charts, there will always be some metric, and that is what defines your success. So that won't change.
Okay, so if you could change anything about the music industry as it is today, what would it be and why?
Music industry today.
Not have to do a part-time job as well as try and make tunes.
Yeah, I suppose.
Yeah, fairer streaming revenue. Fairer streaming revenue.
I suppose it would just be, fair pay for the artists and stuff. Like, people have to rely on live shows and merch, but, like, I mean, at the heart of it, it's music, so they should be getting paid for the music. You shouldn't be getting paid to make a few T-shirts.
I think I'd like to change, like, the kind of, like, the commercialization to an extent, where obviously, say, like, Ariana Grande will be huge no matter what, but if, like, radio stations could just dedicate maybe 10%, 15% of their radio plays to these emerging artists and help bring people up a bit more, I think that would be amazing. Probably just, that'd be one thing I'd change, is just how you can listen to the radio and it might be the same 6 or 7 artists all the time. I mean, it's great and fair play to them. I'd love to be in their position, but if there was just a bit of time allocated, like in Ireland, for example, I think they brought it into law, didn't they, that like 10% of radio play has to be Irish artists. I think it has to be Irish artists. Yeah, I think so. But then a lot of that, the easy way out is just to put on U2 songs, which you know, like, great, but it's not serving the purpose.
Not what we were getting at, guys. You know?
Yeah, you two are going to be big anyway. Like, you know, they're fine.
They're doing all right.
That's pretty interesting. I don't think we have, like, I know, like, if I were to tune into Z100, it's the same 4 artists and the same 20 songs every other hour, and it's so frustrating, which is kind of like why I do what I do here. So it's nice for me to find artists who I think should be showcased in a sense that maybe they're not necessarily, and kind of bring to light this kind of stuff.
Yeah, for sure. It's just how you consume things as well. Like, I think it's important for artists to remember that, like, if music is the most passionate thing in your life, it isn't in everyone else's, and someone else might just want to put on the radio on their way to work and sing along with the song they already know, and that's totally fine, you know. So I think artists need to realize as well that it isn't. Not everyone cares as much as you might like to, and come to terms with that.
We have a question that was created by our PR director, Grace, and I'm going to be 100% honest. I'm sorry, this is a very tough question. What is your opinion of releasing an artist's unreleased music after they've passed away? Should it be released or should it not?
That is a big one. I mean, obviously, there is a precursor there that you would need to, in situations where there's a clear declaration one way or the other from the artist that has passed away, that they would like it handled a certain way. To me, it's always imperative that that is adhered to, whatever that might be, whether that's to release it all or hang on to all of it. And I think that posthumous kind of, I guess, if it feels like it's out from under them at all, that's always unusual to me. But then there's definitely that whole preserving the legacy angle too. Like, you should get the things out if they had been working on them and they wanted them to be received and stuff. I guess it depends if there's an obvious prior discussion about whether it should be done or not. I don't know.
That is a very tough question. I mean, unless the file is called "Do Not Release This" or something, I think it's safe to assume that they were making that song to be heard by the public. So I think that's a tough question. Unless they were like known to not release things until they're perfect, or like their family were like telling you to not release or anything like that. I think
I think it's case by case.
People are making things to be heard.
It's case by case.
It's definitely a case by case thing.
Because I think I read somewhere that Prince has like 900 unreleased songs, and I don't think they will get released. I think it gets messy when people's estates get involved and they realize, oh well, we're sitting on stuff on a hard drive here that could be worth millions. That's where it gets messy.
The thing is, though, in some cases, like the obvious kind of counter argument to that one would be that situation where the release of the music that's being worked on helps those that are still coping with the grief to process the grief. So in certain cases, like Mac Miller's one, for example, there was definitely a kind of a sense there that like his community and his family and his people kind of got together to present this big project after he died, and it was sort of it helped all of them to get over it and helped people to honor him correctly and stuff. And when it's done like that, that's totally cool. So I think as long as it's done, I guess, to the wishes of those closest to the artist, ultimately, in the end, then it's good either way. But I definitely am aware that releases like Mac Miller's can help with, I guess, the catharsis of the whole death of everybody near them. Because as well as being incredibly famous, he is just a young man and he had a family and all the rest. So,
I don't think there's a right answer to the question, really.
For sure. I think there's a difference between the Mac Miller project and then, let's say, like, where every 5 years there seems to be a new Jimi Hendrix song found.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's like, I don't think you wanted this out there. I think,
it's not the same thing.
So I'll give a little backstory on this question. It came about because of the Little Peep songs that were released and how they kind of sounded like unfinished bedroom demos. And then Mac Miller's album came out, and we thought that was like tactfully done. So we try to bring up this topic of maybe like artist wills, or maybe putting it in a contract or reading the contract to make sure like what you want is released. Because you also know that sometimes they go through phones for like voice memos and then put them into songs. So it's pretty interesting to see like the extremes of this question. And as you said, there is no right answer, but it's just to kind of start the ball rolling on what could potentially happen.
I think one of the most like breathtaking albums recently for me was the last Bowie album, Black Star, where he knew he was going to die, and that was like really strange to listen to. Because I think he passed very shortly afterwards, didn't he?
That's like 2 days after it came out.
Yeah. And I know that's a different thing because a lot of the examples you made there, they didn't know they're going to pass. But it is a strange thing. I suppose it's, if there was a new Da Vinci painting found in the morning, would you want it kept away or not? It's a similar thing. It's art.
Was it finished though? painting.
I don't know, man. Yeah, I don't know.
We'll
I
find
can't
out
tell
tomorrow.
Yeah, it's tricky.
I know it's complicated. There's so many different moving parts to what could happen and what might have happened. And I know, like, as a listener, like, you always want to hear more music. But at the end of the day, would the artists have actually been happy with what was released if they didn't know beforehand?
That's the thing.
Yeah, I don't
You'll
know.
never know.
Yeah. I don't think, yeah, who knows? You're right. That was a tough question. You're right.
Yeah. You can tell we don't have an answer for it. We don't have it yet. Give us a couple of weeks.
Apparently Elvis is still alive, so we should go ask him.
Yeah.
Find him.
So my next question is very unrelated, but it was asked at our freshman orientation, and we ask everybody we interview, if you can be any item in the kitchen, what would you be and why?
Milk.
Okay.
Like,
Probably a good fork or something. Everyone needs a fork.
It's a good answer.
You're disappointed when there's no forks. You know, everyone needs a fork.
Unless you're in a world of soup.
Beautiful
disappointment.
You get a little bit. It'll be a bit slow, but you get a little bit on there.
A little bit every now and again.
I'd be the good, like the good cutlery, like the cutlery that gets dished out at Christmas, like the good stuff. Because you don't really have to do that much throughout the year, and everyone really values you. I think just your average utensil can easily get thrown away, but you want to be like one of the.
That's true. There's a lot of reverence with being a kind of a finer knife or whatever. Yeah.
Maybe like a plate that's like kept up in like a glass case, like a fine china, and you're never allowed to use it.
That's a weird.
I'll go with that. I'm gonna be the frequently glorified cake stand. I'm not actually up to all that much, but when you use me, it's gonna look pretty fantastic, and I can be put away with minimal mess, and yeah, that's what I'm going for.
I feel like a kettle, just on the ball every day, no problem,
reliable.
Yeah, that's it.
You need a cup of tea, I'm here for you. Do you know what I mean? That would be me.
Well, you'll be replaced every few years, though.
Yeah, well, Mark. You know?
But then does he continue to be the kettle if that's the role he's chosen? You know what I mean? There's layers here. Like.
Layers. Or maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'll think about it.
I love that question because, like, we were asked that and you don't know anybody and you're just kind of like, oh, what do I say? Like, you feel so judged. Oh, I said it'd be a knife because I have a sharp wit.
That's a much better answer than all of us.
I think
way more concise.
Yeah, I think Americans are better at those kind of answers. We're like, for the next this. Yeah.
Can you tell me about your latest song that was just released and the story behind it?
Yeah, I was away for work and I thought I heard it in my head and I thought it was like a song that existed, and then after like a day of singing it, and looking for it, I realized it didn't exist, so I just wrote it. And then I went back to my apartment and made a demo out of it. And then I think I sent the demo to Adam. I can't remember. Adam's our producer, but I wrote it when I was away, and then we went into Adam and kind of showed it to him and wanted to keep that kind of sincerity to it, because everything we had done previous was a bit more high quality production. So we just kind of took our time with it. I suppose it was probably the longest it took us to record any song, I think, because of the amount of parts that we had to get in to record, like the trumpet player and stuff like that.
I have a question. Was it in 6/8 or 3/4 or neither?
I love this.
I counted in
this discussion. Yeah, we had this discussion the day of recording it because of the feel with the strumming and how many different ways you could strum it. I would say 6/8.
Yeah,
personally.
When we do it live, I have to be super careful that everybody knows where we are, and so that's easiest. I count in 6. Gives everyone a bit more of a chance to get their bearings. So as far as a music theory argument, I don't know how well it being in 6 holds up, but it works for us.
Yeah.
I thought it was like 6 because of the bounce. Like it has this really nice like grounded root, but the way it I don't know, it kind of had that bounce of like that 2 feel in 6/8. At least that's how I counted it in my head when I first.
Yeah.
There's an old video of when I first wrote it, and I think I was strumming it like the original strumming pattern that I had was different, but I think it had been so long since I played it that when I came back to it, I just subconsciously changed it into the 6/8 feel. I think
I feel it in 6 for sure. For sure, in 6/8.
Yeah.
Well, I don't really like
6/8,
counting in
6/8,
24
we're
anyway.
6/8.
Yeah.
No one's saying.
It's actually an 11 if you listen really close.
Well, it's polyrhythm. The whole song's just a polyrhythm. It's actually 4/4.
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty interesting. I haven't heard many songs, at least recently released, that were in a time signature that wasn't 4/4. So that was very exciting for me.
Yeah, that it wasn't a conscious decision really. I think when I wrote it, and then a few days later, I was probably like, "Oh, it's in 6/8." It wasn't like it going into it being like, "I want this to be 6/8."
Yeah. I couldn't imagine it. This song, I couldn't imagine being straight. Like I couldn't imagine it.
Yeah,
It just wouldn't work. It has that like dream-like kind of sway to it, I would say.
Mm.
Yeah, you can hear so many different parts in the song. At least like on first listen, I was like, "Oh, okay," and then I had to listen to it a couple more times to hear all the different moving parts, which I thought was really, really nicely done. So,
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
what's your favorite part of a song that you've written?
These are tough questions.
There's some unreleased. There's some stuff coming out very soon, and there's something on it that like on part 2, which is like I didn't write it, but I think that is a buzz. Just that would be my answer. That doesn't make any sense because you don't know what I'm talking about, but yeah.
Yeah, I know the one Conor means. There's an unreleased work that it's an instrumental, and that's got some of the more kind of, I don't know, I guess adventurous production. There's some pretty crazy stuff going on in that one. So I think as far as it being kind of forward thinking, that's probably about as brazen as we've been today.
I think maybe the riff in the hook in A Little More. So I remember the day I wrote it and I thought I'd peaked. I thought I was always doing better.
I am songwriting.
I have completed songwriting. I love the second verse and Always on Time, the second half of it, and the bass goes back up the octave and all the harmonies come back in. Like,
Yeah.
like, whoo-hoo!
Yeah, I'm at least of the stuff that's come out so far, I really like the end of Always on Time. I like how kind of cacophonous and wide it all sounds compared to how it starts. There's a nice moment when it's kind of trailing off and the acoustic guitar comes back in, and I really enjoy that kind of light and shade. That's probably my favorite one of what we've put out so far, at least.
Like the music you guys release is different than what I normally listen to, so I was very, very excited when I found your band.
Sound.
Based on, I don't know, there was a certain care in the instrumentals and the lyricism that was just composed very, very well, and I liked the different aspects that you put in the songs that you released. Like, as I said, like, it's not this stagnant type of music. It's very, like, you're going through a journey through the song, which I thought was very clever.
That's all we needed to hear there.
Yeah. Can we use that quote?
Yeah, sure, if you want.
Sweet.
Thanks, I really appreciate that.
Yeah, that's definitely what I kind of strive for when writing songs anyway. Instead of just kind of making it feel like you just kind of chew on a song.
What is your writing process like?
Usually either me or Gormy, Conor Gorman, but young Conor Gorman would write an idea of something, and then do up a quick demo of it on Logic and send it into our WhatsApp chat, and then we kind of input our ideas there, or we'd send a session to each other and kind of record our own little bits into it and then send it back to each other until it kind of gets to a place that we're happy enough with to go to Adam with. But sometimes we're kind of stuck with the demo and we're not really sure what we can do, so we just kind of go to Adam's and take it apart and rebuild it in his studio, see what happens there.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
It's I would say like Mark and Conor are definitely the main creative boys there, and then like I feel myself there's probably more of a role of like when we're in the studio, like throwing different ideas out and different arrangement things and whatever. It is very modern, I'd say, the way we do things. Like we don't meet up and then be like, okay, let's write a song together all in the room. You know, it isn't like that at all.
No. Doesn't happen. Collaborative. Everyone has their input at the end of the day, kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty interesting. Sure. A lot of bands do very different things with their writing processes, and I think it stems from, like, I love how you said it's like collaborative in a sense where everyone's kind of contributing their own parts, but there's also like this basic foundation to like grow off of, which plays a role, I think, later on with like the layering and production, which I thought was pretty interesting.
Yeah, like I don't think it'd be an element of any song where if one person really didn't like it, it'd be in there. You know, it is, as Conor said, there is room to go, no, I don't like this. Even though I might not have wrote this section, I don't like it. We're not, you know, it's not a dictatorship or anything.
Democracy.
What's your favorite part of the studio process?
Probably actually recording the parts. Everything else is surprisingly boring.
Yeah.
Kind of sitting around like hearing the same things on loop, making sure everything sounds right, trying to work out why something doesn't sound right.
Yeah, Mark especially loves listening to isolated vocal takes.
I love it. No, I love it. Just please play me my voice with nothing back. It's the greatest thing ever.
Yeah. It's I always the recording process for me is always really fun just because Adam is a really close friend of ours anyway.
Yeah.
So it's nice in that we all know we have to get work done and we're there to do a job, obviously, but it is far more fun than we'd be having if we were working with somebody that wasn't so, I guess, involved in our personal lives. You know, like he's a peer of ours for sure, and another he started as a college friend initially as well, and has produced everything that we've put out. And so I think generally the environment in studio and the fun we can have is probably increased by how well we all know him. That would be my answer to that for sure.
I would say I enjoy just being there because we are very much like the way we write isn't all in a room together. Unless we're gigging, we might not always be in a room together. So I enjoy that aspect of things, and then just the creative process, because it's not a thing where we go in being like, this is exactly what we're going to record and that's it. It's very open. So just where different things come out of and trying different things, that's fun, you know.
It's weird, it's just relaxed. I mean, Adam calls his studio Flake Studios, and it is a really relaxed environment. Like, he goes out, he cooks us food, and he's a seriously good cook. And he makes fire beats and he's fire in the kitchen, and then I go enjoy it at the end. Like, Adam, like, obviously, yeah, he's professional with other people, and he finishes up at like 9 o'clock. Sometimes we end up there at like still at like 3 in the morning, and like we'll get like a couple of beers and like have a barbecue and then listen back to what we've done during the day and then kind of come up with more ideas for it. So I like that. That's always a nice vibe. It's just nice and friendly and chill, you know.
Okay, so this next question is where I normally vicariously live through everybody else. When quarantine was not a thing, what was the scene like where you're from?
Music scene in Dublin is, it's very, very good. It's very tight knit.
Very small.
Yeah, it's small, but like I think it's good that way because everyone
Yeah,
supports each other and everyone knows each other. There's no there's competition in a sense that there are other bands who exist, but no one's like out to get anyone. Or there's not like rival bands or anything like that. Like everyone's mates at the end of the day.
Yeah, and people are pretty supportive, and yeah.
I think it's just a very strong community in general here, because it's among youth anyway in Dublin. It's probably one of the biggest things we have, and it's definitely one of the biggest ways for us to communicate and bond, even if it's with a group of people you don't know or a group of people from an area you're not familiar with. Everyone kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Everyone kind of I don't know, I'll go the easy way out, comes together, I suppose, or something, over kind of that mutual respect for the musicians of Dublin, like the young musicians anyway.
I'd agree. I think because the scene is, like, we all went to the music college, and different people from playing, like, you're doing different shows and you're on the bill with the same bands, and then you might end up playing, just doing loads of different gigs. Basically, it does help because everyone wants to see everyone do well. But Dublin itself is so small. Like, if you are just around town, you'll probably bump into someone you know. So it is very tight knit. I wouldn't say it's small in the sense there isn't much going on. I just mean the number of people doing it isn't large, but it is. I say we punch way above our weight for like a small city, you know, in terms of what we produce.
So where I'm from, there is no scene.
That's sick.
Yes. Yes.
No scene is too scene.
I'm from Staten Island, New York.
You've got the Wu-Tang Clan. What are you on about?
Okay, but like they don't like.
You have the Wu-Tang.
We don't have any venue. Well, we have one venue that maybe, if you're lucky, will let a band play. But like, there's no young college. Well, there's two college age bands here, but no one performs here. It's like it's kind of.
We'll come if we get over as far as we'll come to that venue.
We'll go to that one venue. Yeah.
That one venue. So, School of Rock was filmed on my campus.
Yeah.
Which is exciting and sad that we don't really have music here. Like we have concert bands and like jazz bands because everyone learns in school, but we don't really have anything like flourishing.
It's a shame, yeah. Like, I suppose maybe it'll take that for there to become a scene, you know. So maybe people like yourselves trying to promote local bands and promote other bands in the locality. Then maybe that's what it needs. Maybe be the change you want to see in the world.
That's it. More discussion and more
organize a reunion.
Yeah, more discussion and more interest is how scenes develop. So I guess if it's got to start somewhere, this is definitely the right thing to be doing.
Can I just say that I don't know how, but I came across an article the last day. It must be like Google, because you mentioned School of Rock. Google were giving me stuff about School of Rock. And you know Zack Attack, you know the guitar player?
Yeah.
He's in bits. He's like been arrested loads of times for stealing guitars, and he's like got drug issues and all. I was like, no. What do you mean? So theater is big at your school, but not like commercial music?
No.
Because everyone is presumably everyone just trying to get to Broadway? Is that the?
We're big with pre-professional programs, so like nursing, physician's assistant, business, and then there's the theater program, where everyone basically wants to be on Broadway. And then there's everybody else.
That sounds like a perfect recipe for getting a little scene going. All the little people who don't fit in, that's what it all is. Like, 100%.
Yeah, you would think. You would think a lot of things.
The only good thing about obvious divisions.
Yeah.
You guys have each other.
American school doesn't make any sense to me. Like, my apartment in Dublin, it's me and my girlfriend, and then there's a girl from she's from Pennsylvania, but she did piano in a school just north of New York somewhere. Not Prosperous, I can't remember what it's called. But anyways, and she's in Trinity now doing a master's, and the way she talks about her college education is insane. Like, I just don't understand how people are that cliquey as adults. I don't understand it.
So like, when Jack Black's in the van and he's pulling up to that school, that's the building that we had class in. And I think people don't realize, even people who go to Wagner probably don't realize that the movie was filmed here. So.
Oh, no.
If you go to School of Rock School. I mean, you don't even know that it was filmed there.
See?
I don't know what to tell you. Like,
Yeah, I was obsessed with that movie as a kid. I can't
yeah.
imagine going there and not noticing that. I would have freaked out.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So y'all are hypothetically traveling together in the van. What are 3 songs that must be in your playlist?
3 songs that must be in the playlist.
Or the whole band.
Either. It's up to you. I don't have preference.
I'm gonna say one of them will have to be. What's that song? What's it called? "Soak Up the Sun" or something by Shania Twain.
Shut up.
It's an unbelievable song. What do you mean, shut up? It's such a good song.
We have 3 tunes, Mark. I'm not listening to Shania Twain.
Well, I suppose that's what you have 2 now. You have 2 left. It's either that or Semi-Charmed Life by Third Eye Blind.
Then we're sticking on BB King 12-Bar Blues for you.
I like blues. I just don't like when you play it.
I'm gonna have to say "Stick It to the Man" by the original cast of School of Rock.
Yeah.
I know. Do you know what's the cruising tune is "Life Is a Highway" by Rascal Flatts.
Yeah.
Absolute cruising tune.
Or
Normie's gonna come in here now with
Eagles.
like Sirens by Icarus or something. Normie's gonna come in here with like John Hopkins or something that's too
We need
serious.
one kind of jokey tune. Can I suggest JPEG Mafia? Is that allowed?
Any JPEG Mafia song. Tug Tears.
Tug Tears is on the playlist. And okay, we've got one left. We've got Shania Twain. We've got Tug Tears.
I want to go Rascal Flatts. I want a Rascal Flatts tune on there.
Shania Twain, Rascal Flatts, Tug Tears.
No, actually, do you know what I want? I want one of those YouTube videos like Redbone, but it's all out of key.
Oh yeah.
Will we try and do an actual answer to this question?
Yeah.
In case it ends up actually I don't want to have.
I'd have Shania Twain on there, regardless, joke or not.
I do just Shania, will you?
Okay, let's have another go at this. We imagine we are in a car for a long time and we've only got 3 tunes. This is important.
I got 3 tunes.
Morgan's not taking this lightly.
No, I'm not listening to Shania Twain.
That's your loss, man. That's your loss.
Whatever. Got 3 tunes. Okay.
I'm trying to think when we did the last little run of shows, like what we were listening to.
It was just Mark's playlist.
Yeah, Mark's Discover Weekly.
Listen, it's either my Discover Weekly or the same 2 songs on repeat.
This is what we're trying to figure out. What would the 2 songs be?
We all like Roy Blair.
Yeah,
we do all like Roy Blair, actually. Throw Roy Blair tune in there.
Put a Roy Blair tune in.
Probably something like anything off Big Fish Theory by Vince Staples.
Yeah.
For sure.
Probably go with a bit of Yeah Right.
Yeah,
right, like Party People or something like that.
Crabs in a bucket. Do you know what? Depending on the kind of spin, I wouldn't be opposed to a bit of Fontaines.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, Liberty Bell or Poison Bell.
Yeah.
For sure. Okay, that's a good 3. That's a stronger 3.
And Shania Twain. It's like a hidden track.
Bonus track.
Every 5 times it repeats, Shania Twain comes on.
God, that disaster.
So what musicians inspire you to be a better musician?
Jeez. These are very good questions. These are the kind of questions that I don't expect to come up, so I don't think of them at all. I'd say, we give this answer a lot in every interview we do, but for me, it'll probably be Bon Iver, because I just think he's a very progressive musician, and everything he does seems to always just be unbelievable. And some of the sounds he has in the songs are absolutely outrageous, and I don't even have the slightest clue of how he did them. So I just think he's probably one of those people out there who's pushing the boundaries of music rather than just kind of recycling his old stuff.
I'd have to say, just in terms of like respect, and that Quincy Jones would be up there, just to have arranged and produced some of those kind of albums, is you gotta give props to Quincy. And when you listen back to those like old Michael Jackson records, they sound as good now as they did then. So it's just to create a sound like that still sounds good and people still dance it is huge.
The other lads are still thinking.
Yeah. What's your reckon, Connor?
Do you know what? Because what was the question? It was like to make us better as musicians.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like fine where I am. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Complacent.
I'm cool.
It's already all over for me.
Like, I'm never going to be Slash shredding a solo over any more tunes. I'm not. And I'm okay with that. Do you know what I mean? So I'm like, playing some cute little things.
So probably like from an arrangement or a production point of view.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Like production, like, man, like that Billie Eilish record's mad. Like, I think Phineas is crazy.
Yeah. I think production is like the way forward for music in general. Like everyone wants to get better at production. I mean, I've been playing guitar since I was like 17 now. I'm not even that good on the guitar. I just kind of do a few bits. Like I just fill out a few songs.
I'm not unbelievable by now. Like forget about it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I hear that. What about you, Morris? What are you saying?
For me, I think I don't really view how I write songs to be too closely linked with my own playing of the drums. Like it's not so much about my discipline for me as it is writing to the song and serving the song. So I'm not a huge technique nerd and I don't spend a huge amount of time studying that kind of it as long as I know that I'm fulfilling my role within the song and I do it in a remotely unique way and I manage to be expressive, then that's fine. So I've never been hugely into the really academic way that drums was taught. Like I took a lot more out of meeting people in college than I did from, drumming specific exercises. So for me, I really like how the drum tracks work in LCD Sound System music. I think their songs are great. And I think how simple it can be and yet how kind of universally appreciated those songs are and how it brings people together is really what you're after, because it's not anything to do with overly performative or overly flashy writing. It's just really concisely, deliberately well written, I don't know, I guess infectious music, and that's what I aim for and how I play live. A good musical decision executed with energy and fun. Anything that does that for me is a positive influence, I would say.
Can you describe your sound for me in 4 words? Since there are 4 of you, you can each do 1 word.
Let's do like the songs again. Trying to pick 3. Let's do a word each.
Progressive.
Straight in there.
Who's your man shaking his head?
Straight in there, just with the meat and potatoes answer. Just no thought.
Let's see what this hand comes up in now.
So that's progressive, pop. I'm gonna say varied.
Lads, like, come on. Can I full stop? I'm going to full stop there. I would say it's you've taken the words right out of my mouth, Morgan, there now.
With varied.
I would say unpredictable.
Ooh,
nice.
That's a good one. Yeah, that's a good one.
Like I'm very excited to release like the next body work that's being released and how different things are. I think that it will be exciting for people to
This is probably my favorite question. I love how bands describe themselves because I might not pick the same words, and it's pretty interesting.
Oh, sound.
It's good that we're on the same page, I suppose.
Yeah. We want to be like.
It's good that none of us said bluegrass.
Yeah. That'd be a disaster.
Yeah.
I think your music's very dynamic, which is great. Like, as I said earlier, I love the fact that nothing sounds the same, but there's similar aspects in the songs.
Yeah.
Which kind of make it flow.
Oh, I've got a word for you.
Okay.
Continuity.
Oh Jesus!
No, that's actually a bad. That's a bad one. I'm gonna stick with. I'll stick with unpredictable.
Okay. Okay.
Thought I get more of a reaction. Like, but
Okay, and my last question, because I don't want to keep you guys too long, is what are your goals for 2020? Or if you want, you can do 2021, because 2020 has kind of been cancelled.
Survive, I suppose.
Just
Be alive.
2020 will be sick.
yeah.
2021, just like
I mean,
just
release.
playing gigs.
I'd love to see the boy. I'd love to see you again. Like.
Yeah.
Hang out with these people in real life would be really cool. I guess just to have. It seems like people are really enjoying this recent release, and I haven't done it obviously in a while, but especially in a time when you can't hang out with people really at all. It's really cool to see how you can still engage with people and be sure that you're making people a little happier through putting out music. So I think that given that I know we have stuff to put out that we're all proud of and that I know others will like, I'm just excited to see where all that goes, I guess. I don't have concrete things that I'm aiming for as such, but I know that there will be some people that really enjoy it, and that for me that's enough to keep me wanting to do it, I guess, you know.
For the either end of this year, next year, to get recording again and hopefully have a second EP out by the end of 2021.
Yeah.
I just have a quick question because you mentioned an EP. Sorry. What is your thoughts on EP versus LP?
Yeah, I think a lot of people seem to think EPs are kind of useless or irrelevant now, but I think that's just a stupid way of looking at things, because like an album has to be a certain amount of songs. So like we're hardly going to put something out that has 4 to 5 songs on it and call it an album, because it's not really an album. So like I think when it comes to EPs and stuff like that, like we have a huge backlog of songs from years. We have a lot of songs. So if we were to put out an album with everything from the 2 EPs that we're planning and an album alone, it would be maybe like 40 songs, and no one's going to listen to an album with 40 songs on it. I wouldn't even listen to it. Like,
I guess it's an opportunity to put out something that will be received as a full body of work by the listener, but it can be suitably short form, that it better suits where we are as a new band too. Like, it's, I guess, a more of an introductory way to put out a somewhat larger body of work than a continual drip of singles. It's a bit more interesting, but without taking too crazy a plunge either.
Especially in your early stages, it's like how an upcoming director would make a short movie before going on to make a full movie. I think in your early stages, EPs are important, because you don't want to jump the gun and just go straight to an album. Especially in our case, where we're completely independent and we don't have anyone like a manager or anything like that behind us. So we just kind of do everything ourselves and organize everything ourselves. So for us to go straight to an album would be, I mean, it would be hard for us to get the album out there the way it would need to be.
Yeah.
I appreciate your thoughts. I was just curious, so thanks. And again, thank you guys so much for speaking with me. I had a great time. It was a lot of fun.
Thanks for winning.
No worries. Thanks for talking to us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay. Have a great day. Enjoy the rest of yours.
Thank you.